Everybody, this is Liz, and we just started a conversation, this person and I, and it was getting too exciting. So we had to make sure we pressed record. So we're going to have him introduce himself, where he's from, and what his name is, and a little bit about himself to start.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Corey. I work at Augusta Lawn Care Services Bellingham as a new general manager. I've been working here for a little bit over a year. I took the position just barely before my 1 year date, and I moved to Washington State 2 years ago. I'm from Las Vegas, California, but I have lived just all over the place, and I'll probably go further into that a little bit later.
Yes, there is so much to share. But first, what were we talking about before? He was freezing cold, and I was
Yes.
asking him why he has to have his socks on the whole time because it doesn't matter on camera. And I asked him if he was trying to save money on his heat bill, and he said yes, but I guess you're into suffering.
Yes. So I needed to put some socks on. Otherwise, I'd be thinking about how cold my toes are the whole time, and it would distract me. So I'm compromising here, getting the best of both worlds, trying to get myself mentally fortitude, psyched up. I want to be able to enjoy the Washington cold. I've only ever lived in really hot climates, so it's my first time like being involved in a winter. I had a winter last year, but I kind of just stayed in all the time and had the heater at full blast, so I wouldn't really give myself credit. So this time I'm trying to make it count, trying to like slow down, wind down, enjoy the seasons more as they are, and have a part in that. And so part of that is saving on electricity and being cold.
Good. Well, I can't wait to find out more about you. So, where were you born?
Yeah. So I was born specifically in Henderson, Nevada. It is a little bit of a satellite town city outside of Las Vegas. It's where everybody who works in Las Vegas and does services for Las Vegas lives, without being in like the what you would call like the show district. So I was born there. I lived there consistently for I want to say maybe 6 or 7 years. Let's see, yeah, about 6 or 7 years I was living there. When I was very young, my father passed away, and so I had moved to a part of California called Thousand Oaks, California. It's right outside of Los Angeles, on the west side, and I would move back and forth between those two places basically every 8 months to a year for up until I was about 13. When I was 13, I took a trip to Zimbabwe, Africa. I have family members there who run a nature reserve sort of deal. They don't own the land, but they kind of got permission to live on it, operate it, maintain it under the guise of we're here to preserve the wildlife. And so they got to build their house there. They got to build a sort of missionary venue, weddings, all kinds of stuff. Super great project. And I went to visit them. I stayed with them for a couple of months, and then after that, came back to America, lived in Chicago for a short time, and then I got a phone call from my uncle. My uncle was living in the Philippines, and he called and said, "Hey, you want to move to the Philippines?" And I said, "Sure." I mean, that's like middle of Wisconsin or something. I don't know. Sure, I'll go there. And it was not the middle of Wisconsin at all. So I went over there and see about middle of middle school to the end of high school. I lived overseas in the Philippines, and then I came back to the United States for college. And then about midway through that, COVID hit, and I was kind of unsure about what career I wanted to go down. So I took a break from it, and that's when I moved to Washington, and that was 2 years ago. The rest is history.
So, to break some of that down, you had both of your parents together, and then how old were you when your dad passed away?
I believe I thought I was six, but I went through some old records recently, and I was eight. So that's something I'm still working out in my head. I was eight
Yeah.
years old.
So, how did that affect you?
Yeah. Let's see. There was
Was he sick for a long period of time or was it sudden?
partially sick. He had a heart murmur, and so originally that was the thought, is that he had a stroke. But in actuality, he had a gash on his leg that had gotten infected, that
Mm.
had caused some other auxiliary heart problem, and so it was all too much, and that's when he had passed away. And so it definitely kind of it shifted life for me. I didn't get struck down at that time by the grief, because it's losing a family member is always griefful, and that was only eight, but it didn't strike me down in the way that you would normally expect it to. I just kind of it just like changed the direction that I was going in the
Yeah.
world. And so looking back on it, I was pretty young. I don't remember him expressly well. I do wish that I did, but I do have a lot of his old technology and VHS tapes. He lived his life on a VHS, and everything that we did as kids was recorded. And so I've had a very good journey now that I've become an adult, learning who my father was, going through all those old tapes and whatnot.
Mhm. That's great. So your mom then, you moved a lot. So what was she
Yes.
doing?
Yeah, so my mom, I lived with her for several years after that, but my younger sister, her name is Allison. Allison had I can't remember the name of the disorder, but it's where the femurs, or not her forelegs, but either way, they were rotated to a point where she couldn't walk properly as she got older
Mm,
and she developed as a growing child and whatnot. And so we had to spend a lot on the surgery for that. She had to be in a wheelchair and whatnot. And so my grandparents, my father's parents, called and said, "Hey, I will go stay with them to keep bills light or keep things easier, and then I'll come back and visit often enough, and whatnot." And so that was why I'd been going back and forth so often, as I would be with my grandparents when it was necessary for us financially, and then
mhm.
when it was better for me to be with my family, I'd go back and be with them.
Incredible. So did you feel loved on every front, or did you feel like you were being passed around?
Yeah, I felt loved on every front. Um, Very good question. There's certainly an aspect to moving around so much, and just to answer that shortly, the reason I had moved to the Philippines after all of this, because I would have probably continued to do that throughout my middle and high school, is that my grandmother passed away, and so I couldn't stay there anymore.
Mm,
But all in all, I've never had that kind of striking feeling
mhm.
that I don't belong there or I'm not wanted there. It was just a matter of this is this is what life has brought forward. This is what things are going to have to be like. I have to be able to play my part in that to make sure that not necessarily everybody benefits, but that I don't cause, people to struggle and suffer, and I can at least leave my family for the time, and then my sister can have time to recuperate. She can get her surgery, and then I can come back. I was always more than willing to make that kind of choice.
And then it seems that your family was very varied. I mean, if you had somebody in the Philippines and somebody in Africa, what was the heritage of your family that they could be all over the place like that?
You know, it's a great question. On my mother's side, both of my grandparents are orphans, so we'll never know. But
Incredible.
on my father's side, my grandfather was a business entrepreneur. He worked for a company called Warnaco, and he traveled all over the place. He and my grandmother had separated after a number of years, and so he, in his travels, had ended up in the Philippines there to retire. My uncle, his son, was there, and that's how that part of it had happened. But my grandmother remarried a pastor in Southern California. His name is Danford, and his children are the ones that are in Zimbabwe. One of his daughters was there on a missionary trip where she met a gentleman named Alistair, and they sparked. And elephants are one hell of a first date, and the rest is
Wow.
history.
That is phenomenal. That is a rare story that you're gonna hear and then find you here in little bitty Bellingham. But
Oh
did you
yeah.
always have an idea that you would go to college, or was that something that was expected in your family?
Believe it or not, actually, I'm the first person in 3 generations to even pass high school.
Wow, so why would you think you needed to do that? What ignited something in you that you needed more or you needed an education when people in your family had been somewhat successful?
Yeah, it was at a time, overseas, there's a little bit more reverence for the American way. Not necessarily as this is, here in America, this is just what we do, is how we operate, and there's no sort of overlying bracket or banner of words that this is what we're pursuing or this is who we are. It's just we're just normal American people. But when
Mhm.
you live overseas and you see the things on TV and you see the flashing lights and the big dollars and all that kind of stuff, it really does take a toll. And so they incorporate participating in that into some aspects of life. And one of those kinds of things is how we model the school systems over there, and how you get out of poverty, how you become an American, how you do whatever you want to do and really pursue things in life. Overseas, that was such a big part of a lot of the lives of the people that I was with. Originally, I wasn't even very inspired to do college, but it had just come upon me that like more education, becoming a more intelligent person was something that I needed to pursue, even though at the time I wasn't really a person ready to do that.
Wow. That's good. See, I do know quite a few people from the Philippines, and I have asked them, was that expected of you always? And they said, yeah, it's just the culture. You go to college for something, even if
Hmm.
it's not what you're going to do. So, moving all the way up to where we are now, and then we'll go back a little bit. But how did you first hear about Augusta?
Yeah, originally, I had moved at the time I was in a long-term relationship. I'd moved up here to be with her family, and I needed a job to get into town. Needed to have something that said I worked here, so I could get an apartment. Cool. So I got a job
Hmm.
at a local grocery store. It's actually right down the street from where I live now. It was $14 an hour. It was
Wow.
a hard job. I'll tell you that much. It was not good for you mentally. It was fun. You have a lot of fun with the guests and whatnot, but it just wasn't a good place for you psychologically. And so I thought, I need to get out of here. Scrolling through the job post lists, and I see a Augusta, $18 an hour. Okay, cool. Submit resume. Done. Go about my day. Keep going. I get a call 3 hours later, and it's Marcus Roberts in Redmond, Washington. It's like, "Hey, Corey, saw your resume. You want to come in for an interview?" Yeah, sure. I mean, it was the highest paying job that I saw. I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I went in, and yeah, Marcus kind of just walked me through, this is what we do at Augusta. This is what Command Center is. This is what the 3F program is. This is our values at Augusta. And I was just blown away, and I took it.
So he just sold you the vision, is what he did.
He sold the vision so well.
How did he ask you any questions about yourself?
Yeah, yeah, I think.
That's good.
Yeah, oh, yes. Okay, in that regard, yes, he did. He did ask questions like where I'm from, what I'm looking for work. Uh, can I lift 50 to 60 pounds and work in the hot and cold?
Yep.
But yeah, he got me right away. Fish on the line.
That's awesome. Did you have any landscape experience?
I had never touched a lawnmower in my life at at any time. I didn't know that you could get a string trimmer. I always had seen people using a tool, but I couldn't have told you what was happening. The
Yes.
wire was spinning too fast every time I saw it on TV. I didn't know what it was
Yes.
doing. It was just a machine.
Incredible. So maybe that was good. You didn't have any handicaps when you came on.
No, not at all.
That's good.
So,
So did you start listening to Mike's content or reading some of the audibles, or how was your mindset in those beginning months?
yes. So at the very start, my biggest focus was keeping up with my team, because everybody on my team was such high performers. Everybody on the crew was very consistently 26 to 30 on P for P, and like I didn't want to get fired, so I was just zoned in. I don't even have time to bring headphones. I'm not bringing headphones to work because I need to
Mhm.
pay as close attention to this as possible. If I mess up this edge, this guy's going to tell Marcus, and I'm going to be out of here. And so, for anybody new listening, not the most fantastic approach. The solution of that is my first week, I also didn't use any sunscreen. And so, by the end of my third day, it was the dead of summer here.
Oh
I
my
couldn't
word.
move the weekend after. I had to sleep in a chair like this because I was so burned. And I was like, just got to keep working, just got to keep working. Don't lose the job. Don't lose the job. So, yes, the very start of it was just focus and grind, and then after I got physically, ready for the job, because I wasn't even physically in shape to push a mower.
Mhm.
And my goal with that was, I'm only going to use the 30X instead of the 21-inch, because otherwise I'm not going to have the physical strength to do this. I
Mhm.
sometimes wouldn't even use the self propel just so that I'd have the capacity to keep up with the other guys. So after maybe 2 months, I still didn't pursue the Audible content. I was more focused on honing the craft, becoming more efficient. I was counting the numbers. When I would be given a route, I'd count the budget hours on every single job, so that I know, like, I have 9.5 budget hours today. I know that I'll probably be done about 2 o'clock, and I'll text Marcus either at 2 o'clock or maybe a little bit earlier so he can give me more, because it's just, when you have the opportunity to succeed in P4P, it's the only reason that
Mhm.
you're not making more money is that you're not trying to make more money. There's nothing else stopping you. And
Did you
so,
understand P for P?
I did. It took me 2 months to learn everything.
Mhm.
There were parts of it that I thought I understood that I didn't understand, like the way projects would get split between 2 people based
Yeah.
on how long you were there, things like that. I kind of just always assumed, and there's small things like, manual adjustments in the systems that the manager would do that tax on where does that go? How do you split all of that kind of stuff? That I didn't have a good grasp on for maybe 2, 3 months, but the the heart of P for P made total sense right away.
Awesome. So when you would talk to other guys on your crew that maybe didn't, were they complaining about it? Were they frustrated about it? Even if they were making P for P, were they frustrated because they didn't understand it?
There were some, even now, some of the guys that I have on now my crew are like that. And in my own mind, I think that P for P is something that sells itself because it's not really selling a a product, it's just selling a
Exactly.
mentality.
Mhm.
It's you are being given a system that rewards the mentality. And there's parts of it where people will say, "Well, I'm out in the field and somebody didn't do this thing right now. I have to spend extra time." And, in some cases, you give them manual compensation for that because it's
Mhm.
not the other guy's P for P. And that guy says, "Well, I don't want to have to pay for that." Well, you didn't do the job. You get paid to do what, and it's like there is always going to be that kind of opposition, but ultimately, when somebody says that they don't like P for P, my focus is more on their mindset about
Mhm.
why rather than what they don't understand about the system. Because it's
Yeah.
either nothing you say will convince them or they're just confused.
That's so true, and we'll get back to some of that. So there's been quite a progression for you, but you
Mhm.
had a relationship. I believe you were married, right?
Yes.
Yes, so you went that far, and how long were you married?
I was married for 2 years, almost, just barely 2 years.
So that was during the time we were together before you came to Augusta, you were together while you came to Augusta, and then you split up during Augusta, right?
Yes.
While you were still working in the field as an employee.
Partially. It actually had all transpired at the exact time, Mike had asked me to take over the position.
Wow,
So,
that's a lot.
yeah, it was definitely a very tumultuous, kind of complicated time for me.
Mhm.
Let's see. Yeah, I would say that in that regard, going through there is some aspect to focusing on work helps you deal with, the
Yeah,
pain of things and the difficulty of things.
right.
But more so than taking over the position, on the one hand, ironically, I'm glad that it happened at that specific time because it made the transition and the psychological change of I'm now responsible for so many things. I have to make sure I don't
Yes.
mess this up and this up and this up. I was I had enough of my head out of the job that I didn't like stress and explode.
Yeah.
And by the time I had made my peace with what had happened to me, I was already comfortable with the position, and now it's like I can keep a very consistent flow with it. And so I'm very glad that that happened at that time.
Yeah, because if it happened now that you have all this responsibility and kind of pressure on you, and kind of the way it was for Marcus and myself both, we were able to put in 90, 100 hours in a week. That
Mm,
wouldn't have worked if you were married, probably.
no, no, it would have worked. And so I call it the timing of God. Some people just
Totally.
call it circumstance. But all in all, what has transpired has given me the opportunity to step out of what I thought was going to be the best thing for my life and what I wanted to be the best thing for
Yeah.
my life. I've been able to transfer out of that, and instead of just kind of giving things to myself and what I thought was best, now I can be a
Hmm.
part of what Augusta can do, and I can do my part to I can be in the lives of the guys who work with me, and I can help them learn and grow, and I can do kind of the thing that I want to do with my life, which is just to give things to other people to be helpful.
Hmm.
I can do that to so much more now that I work at Augusta, and now that I've kind of just moved forward and learned from Augusta and learned, the Audible and the systems and whatnot.
So people that are listening to your story right now, okay, they haven't heard all of your story yet, but they're wondering, okay, how in the world did this guy who knew nothing about lawn care and landscaping, didn't even understand how the tools work, how is he in such a short time a general manager of the biggest location in all of Augusta Nation, which we have 144 of to date, maybe 145 by
Mm.
today, but people are wondering how in the world does that even happen? So we have to talk about times in companies where things happen that nobody expects, nobody knows. People have things in their lives and there's no way that they can control them. They don't know if they'll change because of things in their lives. And so we had a general manager, like two people that shared the role after Marcus left. And out of everybody we could think of in the whole company, those were our choices. And we thought they were the best of all the choices. And you try to move people up in an organization and give them the chance to lead. But what we have found is it's not for everybody. And I tease Mike, like, you expect people to give their heart and their soul to this, like, but some people don't care. They have an employee mentality and they just want to do their 8 hours and go home. They don't want to take on so much of what we do at Augusta. So, those two people were supposed to run the company together, supposed to make it profitable, but because of their own limitations, they didn't understand when that pressure is supposed to be almost self pressure. So in the winter, we're supposed to be like really trying to learn and grow to be ready for spring, but they had never experienced a spring. So all of a sudden, they they get to spring and they hadn't prepared as they had been told to do, and then the whole thing, you have no control over what's going to happen with your employees. You don't know how they'll perform or what they'll do under pressure, but it all kind of came to a head and it was getting worse and worse. But then, um, and hindsight is 2020. But Liz came over and worked for one day,
She
and I
did.
came. Corey didn't know me at all, so I came over one day. I don't remember why, who was gone, but I came to help out. Oh yeah, their one office lady was not there, so I ran the crew for one day. Well, they had never experienced how experienced people at Augusta work, so I was like a major shock to them. And at Augusta, we're all about each other, and all that matters is that we help each other finish our day. So that's my mentality. But then the other person who was the general manager at that time, he was soft towards the employees, hadn't bought into what we do, extreme ownership and how we do everything. Well, I'm just doing the Augusta thing, right? Trying to give them all a good day. Before the day, I didn't even know these people and sending them messages, looking forward to working with you today and just doing what we do, right? And so then one of the team players wanted to come back early and not be a team player. And then they had broken a window, the glass was everywhere. And I'm like, well, you need to clean that up because the next person's going to need to use that truck. And they said no, they weren't going to. But then they said they didn't feel good. So I told them if they couldn't do that for the team, that I was letting them go. And oh man, there's a lot of upheaval in the team. Like, first of all, who is this person that doesn't know any of us and doesn't feel emotionally attached to the person they just fired? Why would they do that when they don't even have the power to do it, kind of thing? And the general manager walked in, he's like, that's not good. You should reinstate her. It was a girl too, and she should be allowed to come back. And the whole team was upset, confused, frustrated, mad at me, the whole works, which from a regular person's point of view, I totally get from an employee's mentality. But if people, let's say that every single person on the team was immersed in extreme ownership and all of those things, they would have kind of understood what was happening. But of course, that wasn't the deal. So um, I was kind of the catalyst that made the whole thing come crashing down or to a head, I would say. And so when you're an employee, you're out in the field, you knew nothing about like what the future was going to hold, that you were going to be a GM. How did you feel on that day? Because how long had you worked at Augusta?
At that point, probably about 10 and a half, 11 months.
Okay, so you had seen almost a full year of
Mhm.
all the seasons. Yeah, so when that happened that day, what was your thought process?
Yeah. So all kinds of stuff. That was right at the start of what I had going on personally, and so all in my normal life, I was a mess. I was all over the place. I couldn't think right, and I'm coming to work, and we were at a time where the crew didn't understand P for P. They didn't understand uh, the hustle, the grind mentality, just the fact that we work labor, and you've got to really get after it. You've got to show
Yeah.
up for the team, everything that you want a good team in a landscaping company to have, but we didn't have it. We just had clock in, get my money, get out kind of mentality. And so I'm working on a team coming from one that's super motivated, and now I'm on one that where nobody's really motivated to be a part of the crew. I'm not mentally prepared to be dealing with that or what I even had going on. And so
Mhm.
at that time, I actually was going to leave Augusta. That
Because
specific,
of that day, or had you already planned?
I'd been thinking about it for a little while. My original kind of back and forth was I'm not cut out for this, and I'm losing it. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
go back to the Philippines and do what I know how to do, which is hang out with
Mhm.
my buddies and play soccer.
Yeah.
And on that specific day, I remember talking to the guys, and everybody was very upset. They were all
Yeah.
super frustrated. Exactly as you said, who is this person that just showed up and just fired somebody? Where's our general manager? Where's this? Where's that? Why is this
Mhm.
going on? And it was just this total uproar. But in my head, I excuse me, I'd met you just a couple of times, and I knew Mike. I didn't know you super well, but I knew how Mike operated. And I knew that Mike is the kind of guy who's all in or he's not in.
Mhm.
So there's
Mhm.
total trust there. And so if somebody's going to show up at our location and start making decisions, it's not like you or somebody brought in off the street, or you're just HR filling in for a salesperson. Mike knows you, and certainly there's more to it than what I understand. And what
Mhm.
ended up coming out of that for the team, and I guess what you had done lets me kind of expand on a lesson I've been very grateful to be learning lately, is it did change things on the team. It did change the dynamic. All of a sudden, this yellow lands for people it's
Yeah.
here, this yellow landscaping company that I got a job at that sucks, but I need the money. Oh wow, all of a sudden, like, there's accountability. And if I don't show up, I'm going to get fired. And if I don't help my team, there's consequences for that. If I don't participate in the vision and I help people grow here and grow myself, like, I don't really get considered to stay here. That all of a sudden just came rushing back, and for the whole team. And it was
Yeah.
this change of mentality. Is like, okay, you know what, maybe I should get to know the people I'm working with, and maybe I should be more willing to text somebody at the end of my day and say, hey, I'm about done. Do you need help? I can text the general manager and say that I'm about to finish if you want help. All of
Mhm.
that kind of stuff. It was the catalyst that started that process. And it gave me the opportunity when I took over to kind of, now that I had been with them longer and I had gotten to know them as people, it gave me the opportunity to kind of tug on the heart and say, hey, you know, there is there is an expectation that is held for you, not to put you down, but to lift you up.
Mhm.
A lesson I have learned recently, and I'm learning better ways to say it. I don't know how to say it the best way, but it is a privilege to hold people accountable.
Mhm.
Such a true privilege. It is an honor to make people own up to their circumstances and what they
Mhm.
do. The only other alternative to that in my mind has become truly that you've just been abandoned in some situation where you never show up to work ever, and you have a hard time getting by, and there's just excuse after excuse after excuse, and nobody says anything because it's uncomfortable for them. Well, you're
Mhm.
drowning, and you don't know how to get out of the water. It is such an honor to be in a position, not just professionally, but in life, where I have the comfort and the capacity to tell somebody that they need to do better for themselves,
Mhm.
and just get them out of give them a hand and get them out of the water. And what you had done really started that process, and it has allowed me to be a part of that changing process on my team.
Yeah, so what would have been entirely different, and I would have had support of the team that day, is if I had 2 years, a year, 6 months to
Mm-hmm.
have built what we call relationship capital. Because if I had taken the time, if I had had the chance to build relationship capital with that day, everybody would have been thanking me because they would have seen this over time. This person's not watching out for other people. This person keeps saying they don't feel good. Well, none of us feel good. We're all hot, and to think of others and put others first. So that's a big thing. Like here, I can make at Command Center, I can make really hard calls, but it's because they've experienced so much love and so much support in their personal life and in all the days they don't feel good. And I've helped them through that. It's the only reason that when it comes time to say hard things, they are so appreciative because they know it's coming from a place of love. So, but of course, you didn't know any of that. None of the guys knew none of that. I was just like, whoa, this person, coming in and causing mayhem, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, do you feel like you came into a strong company, but then it switched to the different management, and then do you think that it just deteriorated from there because the team didn't have leadership?
I would say so. I would say that it's a twofold situation. We had gone into winter and then had come out of winter with a total of 5 people. And so, of that crew, 3 of us, I was one of them, we were like the designated, you're responsible for the training and whatnot. And so, one gentleman really did his part. Another one had been with the company for so long that he was just more focused on going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
And I could only assume that being particular with them instead of just getting them ready and I want to get through my day. I'm going to make sure that you're not so
Yeah.
slow that I can't finish, but I'm kind of just waiting to go. There we had one person like that, and then I was there, and it was at a time where I didn't have the mental capacity to become involved with the people that I was with. I was so focused on what was going on in my personal life and trying to, resolve the mess I was in, that all I had the mind for was I'm gonna get through the day and I'm gonna show you how to do all the work. I'm gonna make sure your work is good, and then like I got to stop it there because I don't have time to get to know you. I'm so out of it. So we had this part of the crew where really nobody was being nurtured the way they should
Mm-hmm.
have been nurtured, and that was on me and that was on my peers. None of us were really meeting the standard that you want to meet
Yeah.
as a peer and as a coworker and as somebody who wants to become a leader. We weren't meeting the standards we would have wanted to meet. And then on the administrative side of it, they didn't they didn't hold me accountable for that. And they didn't hold me and my peers accountable for that. And, obviously everybody has reasons for, like for me, I
Mm-hmm.
have reasons why I wasn't following through. But at the same time, I should have expressed it more. I should have
Mm-hmm.
expressed that more as a member of the team. And we didn't have that kind of conversation with our
Yeah.
leadership at the time. That open dynamic, because there was so little accountability put on us, we weren't able to have the hard conversations because we weren't even having the easy ones. And so everything just slowly kind of fractured and fell apart as we went throughout the year. And people would join the team, but they'd be on it for longer and longer periods of time, where that bond was still getting weaker. And that is exactly what led up to the moment where you had come into the office and started making some good changes with us. Is that everybody on the team just, they didn't know the history of Augusta. None of them understood how P4P even operated. Even when
Mm-hmm.
I took over the office position, after running it for 2 months, I then found out that half of the guys didn't know how to calculate their own P4P at all.
Wow.
And we have it up on the board and everything. They'd get the email of, this is your daily P4P report, and they'd take it. And base pay was fine. I want to work as little hours as possible. And, Augusta aside, it's just not a healthy mentality with work.
Yeah.
And so we exactly as you're saying, we just, this bond had fizzled out and we weren't working together uh, interpersonally. And it all come to a head when somebody that this team didn't know the history of it. You've been to with Augusta for 9 years at that point.
Mhm.
Didn't know that, or that you were even the previous general manager. They had no idea, and some lady just showed up and fired some buddy of ours. Like,
Totally understandable
and
because the
so
way the employee mentality is today, it's totally that way since COVID. It's all about the employee and how they feel, and I didn't make everybody feel warm and fuzzy.
no, but it's it's a blessing that it happened because it
Yeah.
what would have happened without that is the people on my team that I've grown to love and value as people I know as as people. I know who they are. I know their dreams. I know what they want to be. I know what they want to do. I know where they need to grow.
Mhm.
They would have been gone.
Oh, yeah, for
They
sure,
if
and
you
why
if
would they stay?
yeah, they would have left. Or if you had been there for a week instead of a day, you would have fired them too. Nobody was measuring up. And it took them seeing, the hard rod for them to accept it when I brought in the wooden rod, so to speak, the metal rod versus the wooden rod. And from there, I've I've been able to build this team of people who produce such high quality results. And I used to be
Mhm,
worried about it because I
mhm,
came from that team where I knew that their work quality wasn't good. I'd teach people the same thing over and over in the field. And then I got out of the field and I wasn't even
mhm,
able to see the results because I'm now full time in the office and doing estimates. I don't have the time to go out with the crew or see their work results. But people will put up images after the jobs with 5-star reviews. We have gotten more 5-star reviews, at least in my tenure here, within the last couple of months than any time prior. And even just down the street from me, we had a job at a hearing facility, and I walk past that place to get my coffee in the morning, and it's amazing. And I have been able to nurture a crew that really values Mike's teaching. They
mhm.
value what Augusta can do for them. They're not necessarily all ready to make the leap
Yeah.
because the first thing you got to do is accept you need to jump, and then you got to do it.
Mhm,
And if you hadn't pushed them a little tough towards the edge, they would have walked away.
mhm.
So now I've got a bunch of people. They're loading up their bungee. What are those things called? Parachutes. They're loading up their parachutes. They're ready to jump. They're
That is
just
so sweet.
getting closer.
Okay, so the other general manager was demoted, but he was still there working.
Hmm.
And so, how do you think that works out typically to have anybody demoted in a company and keep them there? Do you think it would work?
No, certainly not. I think that if the leadership has to make the call, then there's just not an acceptance from the person in that position.
Mhm.
Like, let's say, for example, now that I'm the general manager, I'm pretty much directly accountable to you because you
Mhm.
you know you go straight to Mike, and if you're not happy with something that I'm doing, if we're not talking about it and we don't have that good communication and whatnot, the only option you really have is to like tell me like you're not fulfilling your responsibilities, and two, you won't even be open with me about it. We can't communicate about this position that you're in. I
Mhm.
can't keep that position. Contrarily, let's say I'm not doing well and I know it and you know it and we're talking about it, and it's like, Liz, I really think that there's somebody on my team who could lead the crew better. I think I'm not good with computers. I think that I'm not good with the sales. I'm not comfortable doing door to door. I'm not comfortable getting in front of the team and doing these meetings. I want to participate in Augusta, but I don't have the heart to be this leader.
Mhm.
That's not a demotion at all. That's a change of position and a transfer over to
Right.
a better role. And ultimately, in a business, you want somebody to be in the best role for them. There's this, and you mentioned it earlier about how Mike, don't think that everybody wants to give their heart and soul to the job. I think that it is necessary, not necessarily to give your heart and soul to the word of employer, but you've got to work to live. And it's not like oh man, I've got to work to live. You're on the earth to produce things and to be happy. And you can't do what you want to do unless you work. So why wouldn't you want to enjoy what you do? You don't have to be passionate about it. Certainly in lawn care landscaping, I guarantee you, not every person, not saying most or even few, just not every single one sleeps and dreams about grass. Not
Yes.
everybody. However, there is such a wasted opportunity when you could, instead of be like downtrodden and just, I want my 8 hours and my pay and go, you could, you're in a place, this is who you are and this is what you do. Find something to love about it. Enjoy
Mhm.
doing really clean lines. Enjoy, and this is what I had done for like my months, maybe 3 through 7. I just loved seeing how fast I could get these jobs done.
Mhm.
It was like, I got to make sure my quality is there because I don't want to have to get sent back here. I'm going to lose my P for P if I have to drive back. So like, as long as my quality is where I want it to be, good. Quality is good. I want to just get this done as fast as I can. I want to see how much I can do. I want to see where this goes. And when you have that kind of mentality, you could, some people may say that you're just making peace with it, or
Mhm.
like pulling the wool over your own eyes. But the reality of it is you become able to enjoy something, maybe not deeply, but there's something deep to enjoy about everything. And you don't have to
Mhm.
love airplanes to have a good time on a plane.
Right.
And at the same time, you'll be making way more on P for P while you're doing this. And you should know, well, just to summarize that, you should want to love what you do. And if you're
Mhm.
not in a place where you can love it, either figure out what there is to love about it or go and find a place you can love to work.
That is such great wisdom. That's advice for everybody not to have
Mhm.
such an employee mentality. So now the GM has been demoted. He is working in the field as an employee now, and we're looking at the whole team wondering who has the leadership skills, who could possibly be in this position. And so Lee started kind of grooming you. You were the person that we had our eye on, but we had no clue if you'd be even interested. And Lee said he's going through a lot of stuff right now, and that's a lot of pressure to ask him to take on this position. But I'm like, I don't know, throw it out there and just see if he bites at it or anything. And so you ended up being offered the job and came on as a general manager. When
Mhm.
when you think big picture, maybe you didn't understand the full capacity of what you were taking on. This is the biggest company in Augusta Nation. This is the
Yeah.
one that is the guinea pig for every single other location. It's what we replicate. And now we're asking you to be the GM of it. You have no clue how our software works. It's complicated. And now you have to manage all these people. So, what were you thinking after you accepted this?
Yeah. Let's see. So when Leah asked me specifically if I would consider being the general manager, prior to that day, for a while, like there was for the viewers, there was a period where you would come in and we had made some changes, and then some time had passed, maybe about a month, month and a half, and then Lee had asked me post that decision where the individual who was general manager previously had moved down, and it was like clear that we were going to be making some changes in the office. My thought was, yeah, no, I can't do that. I'm checked out.
So
I
much.
might leave the country. I don't think I'm going to do this. And then Lee had asked me about it, and there was always on the field crew this kind of thought that I'd had in my head. And this is, I feel like this is a really good hallmark for general managers to pick up on more, because I don't think any, maybe I guess you had seen it in me, but I didn't. At least on my end of it, I didn't realize that I was being seen in this way. Is that on the field crew, I wanted my peers to do better, not
Mhm.
necessarily to make my job easier, but it's like I'm out in the field, I'm crushing it. I'm doing 35 an hour week every pay period on these P for P checks. In fall, I'm doing 40, and I was like, I'm crushing it. And I'd see somebody else who's just getting their 9 to 5, and they're doing like
Mhm.
20 to 22, and it's like, dude, like if you, I've worked with you, man. If you just edge a little bit differently, or if you mow in the back and plan, where you do mows when better, like you jump up to 28. All you have to do is just do this kind of thing, and you make 28 an
Mhm.
hour. It's like I just wanted that for people,
Mhm.
and Augusta does have a lot of systems, but I think that one thing is good not to have systems of is ultimately what I wanted, which was um, a framework of leadership. Augusta
Mhm.
has a lot of good systems to learn how to be a leader, but it doesn't make you be a leader. You have to
Definitely.
be a leader from within yourself, and Augusta gives
Yes.
you a really good opportunity to achieve that. And P4P drives that. The 3F program drives that, and
Well,
that's
I feel like you're either a leader or you're not, for the good or the bad.
mhm,
If you have that kind of makeup, you're going to lead. So what it was that we saw in you is, we kind of brought down the hammer, and then it's almost apologetic. We are so sorry that it's been like this. Do you guys know this? Do you guys know this? Do you understand P for P? Do you
mhm.
understand how this works? And they're like, no, we are so sorry. And so then we were trying to rectify the whole thing. And it was your response to how everything happened. We knew there was stuff going on in your life, and we knew you felt like everybody else that day and almost wanted to leave. And so, how did you respond to that though? You're trying to encourage people, trying to say something positive, and as the changes were made, you were able to coach other people on their attitude, on P for P, and you're either a leader or you're not. And it was there. And so that's how we knew you could, but we had no idea whether you'd want to, and you hadn't been with Augusta long. So it and you were well spoken. So you were able to express yourself very well in words, which is helpful to be a leader. Let me go back to your schooling. What were you going to school for?
Initially, I wanted to do chemical engineering and particle physics. I hmm. So originally, I had decided not to because I didn't want to take a career in the industry. I took it up because I just have a passion for like the elements and things of that nature, particle physics. I find it super interesting and it excites me. But career wise, you kind of just end up either doing, lab testing or documentation, or if you want to do what I wanted to do, which is I want to find the next like massive breakthrough. I want to discover the cause of gravity. You have to do it for an employer. You've got to work for somebody else's paid goal. And so ultimately, I'm not producing results that everybody can achieve and benefit from. I'm producing the results that this person asks for, and whether or not that does that is a different topic. And so I
Yeah,
just couldn't
so that
motivate.
all changed because of COVID, right? That it
Yeah,
just all came to a sudden halt.
yeah, it did. I was not motivated to be in the industry of science. And then COVID had hit, and my peers at the college were not motivated. It was all moving to online.
Mhm.
The professors at my college, they were all on tenure and studious and brilliant, but they were tired because the people who
Mhm.
were joining their classes weren't motivated. And so why
Right.
would they be motivated? And so it was just, I was like, I want to learn more things. I want to grow, but this place isn't, it's not giving me that. I'm just
Mhm.
here taking notes. I could Google these things, and you could Google a lot of things, but when you go to a college, there's so much more to it, you think, and that's out there. But where I was in my life at that time, and when COVID had hit, it just wasn't there.
So what is it about you that how did you become so articulate? You're a very deep thinker. You express yourself well in words, and you are a good leader. So how do you think you became that?
Yeah. Funnily enough, there's a speech I've always been waiting to give about where I say to my team, because they say similar things. They think I'm well spoken. The speech I always would go is, contrary to what you think, I don't think I'm a very good speaker. I get caught up a lot. I hear myself doing pauses and ums and buts and uhs and so on. As far as that goes, I would bring part of that answer back to my dad. He would take us into the garage and just teach us for fun. Like we'd have all of our toys and we'd watch Veggie Tales and whatnot. And at certain times he'd say, let's go learn something. And he'd have this giant binder of whatever is in it. There's shapes, there's colors, there's words, there's animals. My favorite was like going through the picture book that he had just printed out a bunch of photos of animals in Africa, and we would just name them off. And my sister and I would race to see who could name them all the fastest and stuff like that. And I guess even with the little time I had with him, my dad just gave me such a drive to like to increase myself, to be
Mhm.
more and achieve more, not for the sake of vanity, but for the sake of deserved potential. One thing I tell my team is that you deserve to be better tomorrow than you are today. Because the only other alternative to saying that is that you don't deserve to be better ever again. And
Mhm.
that's you hear that and it's like, yeah, that's a ridiculous thing to say. So let's grow. You can grow
Yeah,
right now. And I guess I got that from him.
that's pretty phenomenal. So let's jump forward to now. How long have you been a GM?
Probably it's probably been about 6 months.
Okay. And so how has your leadership style changed over this time? And what have you learned in general about business?
Yeah. Leadership wise, working at Augusta has done me wonders. I was doing a management position briefly in California, but that was just like that was a title, you know.
Mhm.
There's people who will take a leadership position so that they have a title over others, but ultimately that doesn't make you a leader.
Mhm.
And even when you have that position, I even had that position, and I thought, cool, I'm a leader now. I didn't have any kind of educators above me because my superiors were that way. It was just a title with them. I had nobody to teach me how to express my philosophies on accountability and a lot of the same things that you find in Augusta. And so working in Augusta has given me so much more opportunity
Mhm.
to develop myself as a leader. Even on the crew, I didn't know how to express these kinds of things. I didn't know the right way to tell somebody that they were edging the wrong way. I didn't know how to express to somebody that the reason they're not succeeding out in the field is because they spend a lot of time on their phone, or they don't want to be there early, or the list goes on. But I didn't know how to express these kinds of things. And when people had negative opinions about management and whatnot, I there were just a couple of times where I had gone up and I said, "Hey, at the end of the day, this is a job, and you don't need to talk like that at all. Like,
Mhm.
you're not gaining anything. You're gossiping." Like, I really dislike gossip. And now that I'm a manager, like that's an easy cake potato walk. I feel super comfortable confronting people about that because I have the opportunity to see so much more of the good overall
Mhm.
that everybody can do, that when there's just that small part of hostility blown up so much, that's easier for me to single out. But like when I had gone to talk to these people, I was freaking out. I was shaking. I was so nervous. And, leading at Augusta, I think that more than just the systems that teach you how to run the business and run, this and that and be a leader, everything that you learn, everything that I have learned is scalable. So, I went from being super nervous to confront two guys about just like bad stuff. Like you'd be super comfortable with that normally. I was just super nervous and I didn't know how to do that kind of thing. And now it's like I'm running a crew between 9 to 15, probably next year, 2025. But just from this small portion of it, I feel super comfortable leading 100 people.
Mhm.
The only thing else
Exactly.
in my head would be, I just need a system in place to keep like you're a group, you're a group, you're a group. Well, that's something I can't do, but I can be like personal enough with them, and I can like work through it and explain all of them why we're doing this leadership choice. And just the the system of Augusta across the board is scalable, and it's scalable
Definitely.
even in your own personal life.
Yeah, so in business, you didn't have a lot of experience in business.
Oh,
So how have you encouraged yourself to grow in more confidence with that? Is it from the Audible, or what kind of pressure have you put on yourself to learn?
yeah, absolutely. So, this is something I tell the guys on my crew, and this is something I tell it to them so that I can reinforce it within myself, is that I work for Mike Andes, and Mike Andes is just an incredible, successful, intelligent person. But Mike goes out of his way constantly to consume new material and to learn.
Mhm.
He built the Audible program. He designed all these systems. He's the one who is always trying to get better and improve. He's looking for coaches, and now he's found a coach. He's always trying to get better. Well, for the viewers, Mike can come into the office and take a look at our P&L And the only reason he doesn't tell me how to solve everything faster is that he has to take the time to read the page. He has got it down like that. And so
Mhm.
if somebody like him could run this business so well and so efficiently, but still be so focused on growing and learning, it's like there's nothing else for me to do but to like answer that. I feel like it's a call to action.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
have to I have to follow that. I have to lead, have him lead by that example.
So you mentioned a little bit ago how many guys you were planning to have for the next season.
Yeah.
But when you became the GM and all that had happened before with kind of a bad culture, did you have to let some of those people from the other team go, or did everybody pivot with the team?
Yes. There there were those, let's see, I'd say we had about 25 people total, not all at the
Mhm.
same time, but total. A lot of them phased out on their own.
Mhm.
And then when I had taken over general manager, it took me a couple of months to really pull the reins in on that kind
Mhm.
of thing. My initial approach was a little bit softer. I think if I had gone back and I was managing like as I am now, going back and starting from day one, I probably would be a little bit more strict just because it wasn't necessary for me to be that soft. It was good
Mhm.
to be like patient and whatnot, but not necessary to that extent. I could have been more uh,
Assertive.
assertive with them, and they would have grown sooner. And
Mhm.
that's like as a manager, that's my biggest regret so far is that because I was not super comfortable confronting all of these people and I didn't know the right way to say it and to touch the heart and all kinds of things, is that it took me too long to learn how to approach them and strengthen them. And if I was better, I could have done that sooner and they would have been better today. So
Hindsight is 2020, isn't it?
hindsight is 2020. But
So
there
did you end up firing anybody?
I did.
One person I know that I had worked with for a couple years, and then you ended up working with them, and you recently had to let them go. So how does something like that happen when they were probably the most senior person you worked with at the company?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really tough one. Funnily enough, I worked with that gentleman on my very first day, and we got a yellow slip. So
Whoa.
I'm coming into Augusta and with no experience, and I got a yellow slip on my
Let me
first day.
guess, it was for weeding.
It was for blackberry trimming,
Oh, okay.
but it could, yeah, definitely after that, the next one. But yes, so he trained me how to do this job, and it was a difficult day, but it ultimately came down to within Augusta, we have so much in place, so much structure for your sake. There is so much here with the intention of helping you do better and get better and be better. And there's people like me and like a lot of my guys who joined Augusta because of a pay rate.
Definitely.
And I was going through life. I was like I wasn't motivated to find the next step after giving up on school. I was just going through work, just trying to get a job that was better than the grocery store. I don't know what I'll do after this landscaping job. I'll probably leave in the winter because it gets cold and there's no work. And so I'll just do something after that. And Augusta grabs you by the shoulders and says, snap out of it, man. You've got a life and you've got a future and you got to build it. And there's so much in place to do that.
Mhm.
And for a very long time, for he was with us for 4 years, he wasn't like me and a lot of the other guys. Augusta brought me in and changed me and
Yeah,
set me on
yeah,
my
yeah.
way. But I didn't have skills that were necessary for career building. I didn't have leadership skills, business skills. I wasn't comfortable confronting people. I wasn't comfortable relating with people emotionally as much. But this other gentleman, he's a very capable, very hardworking guy.
Mhm.
He's born and bred in this area. He knows a lot of people. He's got so many connections where he could, talk to somebody and learn under them and have like a, student teacher relationship and just thrive.
Mhm.
But because he was, this good and the rest of us were this good and we were only asking for this good,
Mhm.
he never took the systems to grow himself
Mhm.
because in the field, it wasn't necessary for him. And so what ended up happening is we did have kind of back and forth complications and conflictions, partially because I think every manager does things differently, and my style is more off the cuff in certain ways.
Mhm.
So for somebody who doesn't want to change gears, like continuously throughout a day or throughout a week or through a month, through a season, that can be very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But ultimately, what it came down to was he's been with us for such a long time, and he's had so much time to grow. He had the opportunities to become GM, but didn't strive after it. And he had the opportunity to learn how to do more maintenance things and didn't strive after it. And he had the opportunity to really just become a new, better version of himself that he'd learned to just be so happy and grateful for, and he didn't take it.
Mhm.
And so I made the decision to let him go so that one, we could really just start fresh at the
Yeah.
location. And also that hopefully, and this is what I really do hope, is that he goes off and, grows. I want,
Somewhere.
I told him, like, I want you to go to technical college. I want you to learn how to work on more engine stuff. I want you to go work for family and all this kind of stuff. Like, take advantage of the opportunities you have and reinforce yourself. And working at Augusta is good for everybody, but if you are not good for yourself, working at Augusta is no different than working anywhere else.
No,
You
for
got to be
sure.
the person to make yourself stronger.
Yeah, so you come into this, and we haven't talked at all about the finances and the numbers. We've
Mm,
talked about leadership, team, culture, but when an owner walks in and he has told the previous GM over and over, you need to hire, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to put pressure on yourself because spring is coming, and none of that happens. Can you imagine on the part of the owner who built this thing like it was his baby up to we had probably 11,000 contacts
yep,
in our CRM at that time. And so, what was it like for you coming in with the owner like completely disappointed, having to put his own personal money in because the other general manager had made it tank? And so, did you have to educate yourself or have Lee educate you like this is where we need to be, this is where we should have been this year,
yeah,
and bring you to the level to even catch the really the difficulty and appreciate where we were at that time, to feel the weight of the situation.
absolutely. Right before I had taken over the position, Lee had revealed to me kind of back end numbers and whatnot about how we were actually performing, things I didn't know about. And we were doing really, really poorly as a team overall. A lot of us were losing the company money just by working there.
Mhm,
And yeah, it was an eye opener. Lee had to reveal a lot to me about how this is obviously you understand the past part of Augusta that you know, and this is what it is now. But it was supposed to be up here from the start. Like we were supposed to just go way further, and so there was a whole lot to learn about that. And as I've progressed through it, and for the viewers, for those of you who are franchisees, I'll tell you this much: is that Lee and I work in the same office, and so if you ever feel pressured on a coaching call, I guarantee you, I know how you feel. I'm always on
mhm,
one. I'm with him
mhm,
all the time, and so that's kind of how it's been for me. Is if I'm doing something in the office where I know for certain I know how to do it, I will
mhm,
take care of it. But at the start of it, and as we've progressed, it's gotten lower. Is if there's something I don't know, I would be crazy to pretend like I know the numbers and I know the game better than Lee and Mike.
mhm,
And so if I don't know, I've got to give it to them. And it's been, it's as you say, is that there is I want to be an owner. I want to be the creator of my whole thing. And I just want to be an employee. In the position that I'm in as an employee, it's so relieving to know that there's someone I can actually just ask for the guidance.
mhm,
It is Mike's passion project at this point. And what I've been able to do at this location, what this has freed me up for, is to strive for different bigger goals. At the Bellingham location, one thing after the conference that I'm super super motivated by is just the ability to produce more so that I can go into more systems for the franchise itself. More overhead support, more co-pilot development, more Augusta development, everything that we all are trying to achieve. The Bellingham location is a big part of making that succeed, and I feel like it's a personal responsibility to get because it ultimately comes down to my crew is to get my crew ready and strong and capable enough to produce results both for themselves but also for the business, so I can give that off to more people, and more people can join Augusta, and they can start nurturing their crew the way I'm nurturing my crew for the sake of helping other people, and just this growing machine of growth.
So did Mike give you a number and say, "We have to reach this," or did he just light the fire in you and kind of hand it to you and say, "Take this and run with it"? What were the parameters he gave you?
Yeah, Mike. Let's see. He didn't give me any numbers. Mike's Mike's philosophy off of leadership. I will share this to the viewers is that during the transition, Mike was very busy, both with franchising and his new content and Copilot. And so we actually hadn't seen each other in person for a little bit over a month. And
Mhm.
that whole period of time was at the exact same time as the position takeover. So I didn't even have, a meeting with Mike about this. It's all it's all about trust.
Mhm.
And Mike trusts Lee. Lee trusted me. Therefore, Mike will trust me. And when Mike says, we need to get things better, Mike trusts me to pursue that and to achieve it. And so the number side is definitely something we're really excited for next year.
Mhm.
But this year, it was really just like let's fix this. Come fix this.
Yeah,
And
so I heard a number that you and Lee were gonna shoot for, which seems almost impossible.
mhm.
And I also heard that you were planning to hire 30 people this year.
Yeah,
So you were gonna have you're planning to have your total of 30 in the field?
yes. The goal for now is 30 total employees at one time. The only thing that would change that is if it goes up. Lee and I are really excited for next year. We want to hit 2 million with the location. We
Mhm.
think that we have the capacity for it. With Lee and I both operating it, it'll be very, very possible for us to manage that many people. And I've got a lot of faith in my guys now. I know that they will train the next generation next year to do really well. And so there's that end of it. And the only thing stopping us from getting 35, maybe 40 people is that we've just got to get a handle on the first 30. And
Yes.
if we can do that in 2 months instead of three, cool, we'll hire five more and we'll get another check. It's exciting. It's an
Yeah.
exciting pursuit.
And anybody watching you is gonna say, "And then how in the world are you gonna get these people? There's no way to get a total of 30 guys." So what's your plan?
Yes, but believe it or not, right now, a lot of people are still putting in applications here, even though it's the dead of winter. But our goal is, next year, it's the 10th year of Augusta. We want to go so hard on our advertising, do all kinds of fun stuff, and make it so that the crew, so we can do a bunch of interviews. And my philosophy, take it from me. I'll tell you this much: no mowing experience, no real goal, vision, direction, no physical capacity to push a mower, really. And just with the mindset change of Augusta
Mhm.
and being sold on thank you, Marcus, selling me on the vision of everything that
Totally.
we do. I, I'm a general manager now at the Bellingham location. And now my goal is to just get like the guys I have that are going to go into next year. I want all of them to open their own franchises. And if they
Yeah.
don't, I want them to open their own businesses. I've talked to them about opening their own business. And if I can get people in the door and I can say, hey, so you're looking for a normal job, I'm going to change your life. You
Yes.
want it? Let's go. And every person that I can get in the door, I want to get them in the door. If they're willing to grow and to say, there's something in my life that I want to be better and I don't know how to do it, I'm going to say, come here and I will show you, and you will get paid to
Mhm.
do it.
Yeah, so, the reason I asked you that is because I asked you that if Marcus sold you, and my weakness really has been that I'm really good at selling, and I would interview people, and I would sell them on Augusta, but I didn't really dig into, "Do I really want this person? Have I asked enough
Mhm.
questions about them that I'm thinking, 'Oh, no way.'" I'm just selling them the vision, which it sounds so good, and everybody wants to be a part of it. till they get there and they realize, oh, I'm supposed to work. I'm supposed to take care of people. I'm not allowed to be late.
Oh yeah.
And so that has been the challenge for me to kind of rein that in and try to make them talk a lot. And so I can decide for me, do I want them instead of just making them want it? Because then they don't show up for their first day of work because they went home and somebody talked them out of it and they had all their self-doubt. And so then they don't even show up. So I've tried to put a lot of things in place now to keep them engaged until the start date. So they actually show up. So,
Mm.
to head towards the end of this, what would you say if you were talking to some young guy who had no experience, just got hired at a company? What would you tell him, not knowing that you were going to have such success in such a short amount of time? What would you think he should focus on?
I'm telling that young man what he should be focusing on.
Hmm.
Yeah,
If he wants to get where you are that fast, what would he need to do?
I would say there's that little voice in the back of your head telling you that if you put in the effort, it will go through and it will work out. And there's that little voice in your head telling you that, you have the time to do this thing that you don't really feel like doing. There's a book that you have that you don't really feel like reading, but you sure would like to be the guy who read it. There's this food that you've had in the fridge that you bought last week that's got moldy, and now you're going to go out and buy the same ingredients so that you can cook pad thai again, except you didn't cook it again. And there's that little voice saying, you'd love to have friends over and cook pad thai for everybody. Listen to that little voice. Show up for yourself. And if I could go back and be that person, I'd tell him, do it sooner.
Hmm.
There's there's nobody in the world you'll ever meet who says that they regret respecting themselves.
Hmm.
And you have to respect yourself enough and you have to respect other people enough to be accountable to yourself. Everybody's got to
Hmm.
be accountable to themselves. And there's, don't not necessarily meaning grind and work 80 hours every day just to achieve it and do
Hmm.
something, but it's so much better than separating, this is just what I do for work and this is just what I have to do to eat food and this and this and that and that. And you're ultimately you're stuck in the game. You're stuck in the process, whatever people want to frame it up as, this the game of life, what you got to do to get by. You're in it. You've got to be in it. There's plenty to enjoy about it, but you'd enjoy it a whole lot more if you stopped trying to escape it.
That's really good. So we've talked about you and your service to Augusta and you being a great leader now, which Lee has acknowledged, Mike has acknowledged, and I think you're a great leader also. And we are very privileged to have you. But when we think about you, like for your future, what have you thought about for you?
Yeah. So I intend to stay in the position for at least 3 to 5 years. I say three instead of five definitively because I feel like by the time 3 years has come, we will have grown this location to a size big enough that I will be able to do more for the company, and
Mm,
I'll be able to build somebody up in that time to replace me. And ultimately, my goal is to be replaced. I want to create a crew of A players who, whether or not they succeed in Augusta, because ultimately we're landscapers and not everybody likes to do landscaping. A lot of the guys who joined, me included, didn't join because they wanted to do landscaping. But it is a
mhm,
tool, this job in this company is a tool for other people to come in and learn and grow and leave with the skills to do certain things. And so, career wise, I don't have much of an intention. I may, after my tenure, although I do intend to stay at Augusta for a while now, at least that amount of time. I've thought about going to college, not for any study, not for any particular thing. I'm sure I'll come upon something one day, but Augusta has given me the breadth of wanting to learn more. And I
mhm,
want to be in a place where I can be around as many people as possible who want to learn more. Right
mhm.
now for it's work, and so I'm around a lot of people like that, but I'm still very accountable and I have a lot of responsibility under me. I'd love to be in a place where I could be around learners.
Mhm. I have a feeling that's all gonna happen at Augusta,
I
and
do.
you might feel like you have that without needing to go to college to have it. Um, so a couple more things.
Mm,
This week, you have switched over to Copilot, and we have used Service Autopilot for many years. And there are thousands of people all over the world that have been listening to Mike's content and are considering moving to Copilot. So, what has your thought process been to make this huge switch with the biggest company in Augusta Nation?
yeah. So originally we were going to do it in January. We were going to do it January 1st. And during our onboarding call yesterday, we were, you know what? Let's just go. Let's do it. Our thinking behind it is, we think it's ready for us to get into it. We think that, or at least in my own head, I think that there's no reason not to jump off a sinking ship. And I don't
Mhm.
mean that in any way other than the rest of the landscaping industry is is staying in the same place. And
Yes.
the systems of Augusta and our business, our team of everybody is we're still going this way. And so you could stay back here, but ultimately you're just going to keep getting stretched thinner and thinner and thinner, and just keeps getting further away from this base ground that they've stayed at. And so we're going to get up here one way or another. It's not a question of how.
Yeah.
It's a matter of when. And by the time we get there, and by the time the engine is done being tuned, I want to be the kind of guy who knows how to drive the car.
Mhm.
If I'm gonna hit the racetrack, I'm not gonna learn. I don't want somebody telling me how to use the pedals in a race car. I need to be able to drive it. Otherwise, get me out of the race car. Get somebody else in here, and I'm not getting left behind.
So you're ready. You're ready
I'm
to take
I'm
this
very
leap.
ready.
Yeah, me too. I'm so excited to have all of Augusta Nation in there, and of course, stuff is gonna break and whatever, but that's the fun of the game. So as we wrap up, what can you share that you listen to, bring into yourself, that really makes you the person you are, gives you the
Mm,
energy and the fortitude to do what you have to do? This is a heavy burden of command,
yeah,
and so just tell us so we can learn and become the kind of person that you have had yourself become and are seeking to become. What do you listen to help you with that?
yeah. So a lot of what I am outside of what I've learned in Augusta, I've taken from Scripture. I try to spend as much time as I can in either in prayer or leading and learning. When it comes to leadership positions, or leader the not leadership positions, but my leadership moments where it's like it's time for me to be a leader. What I just go to is this what's good for this person's life? Is this a righteous thing to do what I'm doing? I've let people go who I didn't even really want to let go,
Hmm.
but for their sake, for their future, for their soul, for their growth, and for their development, and what's going on in their life that I can see the plan that's being set out for them. I have a responsibility to play my part in that, and it's not always clear, but I take a lot of cues from my superiors, which would be you and Lee and Mike, and I spend a lot of time kind of referring to what I understand about Scripture, and from there I take an Audible book and I listen to it and I process it and I try to put all of the information that's there onto what I know and who I am. And it's just a slow building process where I've got the framework that I've gained mostly from Scripture that I'm now filling in, and I'm kind of storing treasures of knowledge through the systems that Augusta has, but more importantly, the posture of heart that the job has given me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That will help a lot of people, I think. And do you have a quote that you'd like to share as we wrap up?
Mm. Well, yes, there's one scripture I always keep close to me, which is Proverbs 20, number 5, and it is that the heart of a man is deep waters, but wisdom and understanding draws that out. And so there's just a couple ways to look at that. And one is when you really put the pins on yourself and you try to grow as a person and you're critical with yourself and you try to keep yourself aligned and you become this wise person, when you see another person struggling, you see them drowning, even if they're trying to hide it, you see it. Understanding draws out these waters,
Mhm.
and it's kind of like it's partway motivation. It says to me that if I knew more and if I paid more attention, I'd be able to help somebody. I'd be able to understand them. And when somebody does something that, upsets me or like they do something that intentionally offensive, I'll be able to look at them and I'll see what's really going on. I can see where they need help. And ultimately, when my life goal is to produce good and to be a part of something good, getting other people involved with that is a requirement,
Mhm.
because otherwise I'm not doing anything for them. If I'm not bringing the good out of people, I'm not actually helping them. And so that scripture I keep very close to me. It inspires me to stay accountable and to see the best in everybody.
Mhm. Well, I don't think it was an accident that you came to Augusta for sure. And we are certainly honored and privileged to have you on our team and to grow this company with you. And I feel very confident that with it in your hands, you're going to do really well this upcoming year. So I'll let you go for today. I will get this posted so that a lot of GMs can see there's a lot of hope and employees can see there's a lot of hope to get far when they're in Augusta Nation. I
Yep.
really appreciate you. You have a great day.
Thank you, Liz. Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Take care. Bye bye.